How did Hammurabi's code, written nearly 4,000 years ago, have such progressive laws such as minimum wage, the right to be born a free man, the need to work off your debt, and no incest? This was written 2,000 years before the Bible. I guess those were just ideas that weren't too hard to come up with. This whole question seems based on two assumptions that are untrue. The first is that in history, humankind gets progressively better, for example science or law. That's not true. Knowledge is gained and lost, laws disappear and reappear. The second is that before the Bible, people didn't care about each other's well-being or know what ethical behavior was. Of course they did. To coexist peacefully in societies, people needed to abide by certain rules. Because these concepts are extremely simple, why would someone not be able to come up with them? People have always been people. Some basic concepts, rules, and regulations come into being when existing as a social species. The Bible is not one text itself, but a collection of stories and tales borrowing from many different sources, likely going back to Sumerian tablets and things like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Are you the person who posted this exact same question 41 days ago? Did you think the Bible invented morality? Because the argument that you need Christianity to have morality is inherently flawed. We are a social species, and it's beneficial for us to have basic human needs met to function and grow as a group. Because ancient people were people and not idiots? The modern world doesn't have a monopoly on decent ideas. Because morality predates the Bible, and the Bible is not necessary for morality to exist. It would strongly suggest that those who claim that the Ten Commandments, Judeo-Christian values, and Christian prayer in schools are the only basis for social morality are wrong. How are they progressive if they were written so long ago? They are old ideas. There isn't any significant difference between people now and 4,000 years ago. These concepts aren't progressive, they are pretty basic. And also concept of linear progress, things evolving over time from simple to complex etc. is just a bias. For example, this bias has us assume that prehistoric humans were like cave dwellers, little better than animals leading a savage life that consisted of mere survival, and then things evolved from there over time into the civilization we now have, which is not true BTW. So 4,000 years ago things should have been much worse than what we have now according to this logic. But truth is there is not much new under the sun, and things do not progress linearly. Why would you think the Bible is some unique watermark of morality? We now know the Sumerians figured out Euclidean geometry before Euclid did by about 1,000 years, so they seem to have been pretty smart cookies. There's a novel which, while it doesn't mention Hammurabi's code, offers an interesting story based on the concept that you're asking about, a canticle for Leibovitz. Because you don't need a god to have morals. Millennials can't believe they don't actually have a single original idea. I feel like the real question you're asking is, with these ideas already in place, how did society regress? That's a hard question to answer, but people in charge tend not to be great humans. Well, it had no right to be born a freeman. That's not how that works. But progressive is relative, and those laws are really barebones in terms of the logic required to deem them necessary. No wage protection, peasant rebellions bad for long-term society. No need to work off debts, no debts ever being repaid bad for long-term society. Incest, birth defects, you get the point already. Also remember that a king is only as powerful as he is respected. You still had to play the game of politics as a ruler, less cells of uncooperative citizens bring your society to its knees. If you don't appease doctors, farmers, and fieldworkers, your people are going to starve to death before dying of disease. Protecting these people from getting gypped is thus important to maintaining control. Plus people are people. We haven't changed that much. Empathy has existed since long before Homo habilis, let alone Homo sapiens. The Bible isn't the source of morality. The right way to do things really isn't that fucking complicated. You should check out The Dawn of Everything by Davids Grieber and Wingro. There's a long history, tens of thousands of years of ancient humans doing things that way too many modern people baselessly assume they couldn't have done. To be fair, I read a lot of it and there's a lot of weird rules. There isn't really a minimum wage reference, but there is several laws about not being compensated properly for selling something or providing a service. It's similar. Lots of stuff about cheating, slaves, and random stuff like, oh you killed my son on accident, fuck it your son dies too, or stuff about incest here and there. Honestly, it's just a bunch of normalish concepts that were actually written down for the first time, since these laws were likely normal for kings, just never like standardized. As for why the Bible doesn't cover this, that's because the holy books weren't really law books, more like lifestyle books. Because the ideas aren't exclusive to modernity and Christianity. What's empathy and equality got to do with the world's most stolen book? If I wrote a bunch of whacked out shit that became famous in 1,000 years, do you think some muppet will go, "Wow, look at medieval society. It was more progressive than OP's whacked out bullshit"? It's because humanity and development has been around way longer than people think. Harappan civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, and the ancient Chinese civilization as well as the Egyptian civilization existed thousands of years before the Christ era. In history, humanity has taken multiple centuries of setbacks multiple times. Sometimes due to invasion, sometimes due to natural disasters, or a combination of both. So in a few places they were more advanced 4,000 years ago. There's also a lot of bad things in Hammurabi's code, such as punishing adulterers by binding their hands and feet together and throwing them in the ocean.